Hi, it's Chris V from Ocean Pro. Today we're going to talk about the Revolver Throttle Assembly. The Revolver Throttle is a throttle assembly that we've recently designed and built and introduced to the market that is revolutionary in a number of different ways. The Revolver Throttle is a variable rate throttle kit. It allows you to change the amount of twist that the throttle has in 10-degree increments on your motorcycle very quickly and easily. It's useful for street bikes or off-road motorcycles, virtually any bike that has a push-pull throttle where you would want to adapt the amount of twist to your personal preference. A good example for that is the street rider who may want to have a longer throttle for use on the street where speeds are lower and he wants finer control of his motorcycle, as opposed to when he's going to go off to a track day and it's just more important to get to full throttle, and so he'll put a shorter reel into it to reduce the amount of twist to get to full throttle. So you can tailor the amount of twist to your own personal preference and do it very easily and quickly without having to make a lot of other adjustments. The reels are easy to change right on the motorcycle. It's 2 bolts in about 2 minutes. The throttle is also designed to accommodate the changes that happen with different size reels. Because of the different diameters, you would have a different cable angle or a different cable length, and the throttle automatically accommodates for that so that you don't have to worry about those adjustments. No matter what reel is in there, the throttle always feels very smooth and very sensitive. The throttle kit comes with throttle, of course, 4 different size reels that will basically change the amount of twist in the throttle in 10-degree increments, a set of fine Motion Pro cables, a pair of grips also, and so you can see the complete package here. Something as an accessory, certain motorcycles, say like a GSX-R, have the switches for the engine and starter switch incorporated into the throttle housing, so some applications need to use an accessory switch to keep that function on the motorcycle. That's basically the kit. Let's get to work and see how it goes on the bike. At this point, we've done a lot of work to be able to get to the throttle bodies, which we need to access to be able to change the throttle cables. In your particular instance, you'll most likely need to remove the fuel tank, the air box, perhaps part of the tail section. Every situation is a little bit different. So consult your service manual to determine what you need to do to be able to access the throttle bodies and the throttle cables. First thing we do is remove the throttle cables from the throttle bodies of the motorcycle. As you disassemble the cables or any of the wiring from the motorcycle, always keep track of how it is routed so that you route the new cables and wiring in the same manner. Once the throttle cables are removed, we can disconnect the stock throttle from the handlebar and remove it and get ready to install the Revolver Throttle. Now we have the stock throttle assembly off of the handlebar. On this Suzuki, the switch is incorporated into the throttle housing, so we're going to need to use an accessory switch on it. You can see the wiring that comes off here from the stock switch. Every bike is a little different. You need to consult with the service manual for your particular model of motorcycle and the wiring diagram that is included in that manual so that you can properly rewire the motorcycle. This is a very, very critical part of the job, and if you're not familiar with working on electrical systems or have any doubts, always seek out the help of a professional technician to make sure the job is done right the first time. Okay, we've got the stock throttle off of the handlebar. Next thing we're going to do is start to install the revolver cables and the throttle. Before we install the cables though, we need to lubricate the cables themselves. All cables need to be lubricated to maximize their lifetime and also maximize their feel. So we're going to lubricate the cables real quick. Motion Pro makes our own proprietary cable lube. Of course, we think it's the best stuff out there. It is a product that was developed over time with Redline and some other chemical engineers to work specifically with cables and sliding. Unlike most cables, the flare on the bell mouth makes it really easy to just shoot lube into the cable on each side. You can see it get filled up, and then just move the wires around to help distribute it down into the housing. You'll want to repeat this 4 or 5 times and lubricate the cables all the way through. Once that's done, we're ready to install the cables. An important step to take is to make sure that the cables are attached properly to the throttle bodies, that the pull side is on the pull side of the throttle bodies. In the particular case of the revolver throttle, the pull side is if you're holding it in this orientation, the pull side is the right side elbow. The throttle operates in this manner to pull the throttle bodies open. Now we have the cables attached to the throttle bodies and routed properly through the bike to get the cables in the position to be installed on the handlebar. Next step, once we have the cables routed, is to install the throttle assembly itself. So you need to completely disassemble the throttle assembly. With each installation, you need to decide what reel you're going to start with. It's very critical that you don't use a reel that is larger than you will be able to adequately control the motorcycle. It's strongly recommended that you start with the smallest reel available, get used to that one, and then work your way forwards. In this case, with this particular GSXR, the stock throttle tube is 36 millimeters in diameter. So the smallest reel in the revolver throttle, the 35, is just slightly smaller. It's virtually the same as the stock reel. And so this would be the one to start with. The tube is keyed so that you can only insert it one way. It will only go in one place. The locating ring fits into the throttle housing to locate the tube in place. The next step before we assemble the throttle together is to lubricate the barrels of the throttle cables in the reel itself. Lubrication, again, here is very important to make sure that the barrels don't bind in the throttle and cause wear or, again, poor feel or function. Next step is to install the throttle itself onto the handlebar. The cables will be connected to the throttle tube, and then the throttle housing connected around the throttle assembly. The pull cable is way too tight right now for this installation. So at the adjuster, down onto the throttle bodies, we'll loosen up the cable so that we have the proper amount of free play. Proper amount of free play will be about 1 millimeter of twist up at the throttle assembly. Oh yeah. See here how quickly and easily it snaps back. The amount of effort to twist it is also now much reduced. This is proper adjustment. Now that the adjustment is correct, it's time to do the final tightening on the adjusters at the throttle bodies. These again don't need a lot of torque, just a good snug. Put them in place. Double check it one last time to make sure you have good feel and a fast return. Now that we have the throttle installed and the cables adjusted, everything is feeling really good on the throttle. It's snapping back quickly and feels very smooth. Now it's time, at least in this particular installation on this GSXR, to install the accessory switch, which will fit right on the handlebar where the original used to be. In this situation, in installing this switch, there is a locating pin on the housing of the switch to make sure that the switch does not rotate on the handlebar when you're trying to operate it. This is an important safety feature of the switch and is something that should not be ignored. So what we need to do now is fit the switch onto the handlebar, determine where our location is going to be, and drill the handlebar for that pin. Now that we have the hole drilled in the handlebar, we're ready to install the switch. You can feel it click into place, nice and stable. Now, because of the locating pin, we don't need to make these very tight at all. Switch is installed. Again, you want to refer to the wiring diagram in your service manual to properly wire the two functions of this switch into your particular model of motorcycle. And again, I can't stress how important it is that this step is always done properly, because this is a major, major safety feature on your motorcycle.